Hello, Torres the Warrior here, and welcome to Rage Talk 2 Q&A. So, I'm going to be answering a whole bunch of questions in this video. I usually try to answer a lot of the questions people send me through the emails and through YouTube. But, you know, just so you guys know that I'm answering them, I'm going to make a video where I do that too, so y'all can see it in case you missed it. So, starting off, and these can be questions from anywhere. Some of these are comments, some of these are sent to my PM over YouTube, and some of them are from email. So the first one, this was asked a lot, where did I get this mount? And I've answered this in comments, but most of these questions I've answered in comments or somewhere before. But this mount is from winning 75 rated battlegrounds. So right here, this achievement right here. Win 75 rated battlegrounds, reward Epic Wolf and Veteran of the Horde title. So that's how you get the mount. Now the next two questions are about my last guide video, the 4.2 Fury guide video. The first one was about Heroic Strike. I didn't really mention Heroic Strike. I touched on it a little bit. I think, you know, I mentioned some stuff about it, but I didn't really tell you how to use Heroic Strike properly. And it's how you do that is you just pretty much just whenever your rage looks like it might go over 100, you Heroic Strike. Now, that sounds a lot easier than it actually is. Like, oh, well, it's at 80, so I'm going to Heroic Strike. But you got to, like, account for a lot more things than that. You got to account for your rage income, which is really part of the skill of being a warrior in general, is learning to manage your rage income. Because either you get, like, Bloodlust, okay, well, I need to be watching it more because I'm hitting faster now. Or you're taking a bunch of AoE damage. Alright, well, I'm getting rage from the damage I'm taking, so I need to be able to compensate for that, and I need to be able to Heroic Strike off all this extra rage, because every point past 100 is a point that you can't use, so that's bad. The next one, which is probably the best question I got out of all, I got a lot of good questions. This one I really liked because this one actually helped me. And someone asked about, I got a few questions asking about, well, below 20%, do you just spam execute? And that's honestly what I was doing. I was spamming execute and then hitting Battle Shout and Colossus Smash on cooldown, and mostly because now I have the 2-piece from the Firelands and it gives you a damage bonus from using Battle Shout. And that's just because execute is the highest damage per global, so it hits harder than anything you have. A 30 rage execute will hit harder than pretty much anything else you've got. But it comes down to DPR, which is damage per rage, because if you just keep hitting Heroic Strike, you'll either run out of rage, or you'll be getting not your big 30 rage executes, but you'll be getting like 10 rage or 20 rage executes, whatever the minimum is. And those don't hit so hard, and it's still just putting you on low rage the whole time. Sure, you're attacking faster, but that ends up not being as much damage. Now the best way to do it is to just change your rotation. And this is what the priority looks like. You're still, after you now immediately when it goes 20%, you still just hit execute 5 times, doesn't matter what rage they go on, you're doing that for the damage bonus. Then your priority goes like this. You Bloodthirst, and then every other cooldown, and then you Colossus Smash, Slam on proc, and Battle Shout. And then execute after that. Now, this is a bit more lenient because you gotta watch your executioner buff. You don't want to let it go down. Once it starts to get kind of like low, it's starting to run out, you want to hit execute regardless. Doesn't matter what's happened. I don't care if Colossus Smash is off cooldown and you have a slam proc. You hit execute because you don't want to lose that 25% speed boost. And the reason you do this is because, you know, we're still Colossus Smashing and Battle Shouting. That's what I was doing before. But the whole Bloodthirst Slam thing, when it comes to DPR, nothing beats the Bloodthirst Slam combo. And that is because Bloodthirst does a whole bunch of damage. It actually has a higher damage per rage than Execute, but it costs 20 rage instead of 30, so it ends up doing less damage per global than an Execute. So, but the damage per rage is much better, and it actually has a hidden damage per rage in there, because if you get a Slam proc, it does a whole bunch more damage, and it still costs the same amount of rage. It costs an extra global, but still, it's the most damage per rage you can possibly get is off of using that combo, and that is the most damage sub-execute. You do stop using Raging Blow just because I'm pretty sure you get more damage and everything out of just executing. So that, and if you use full Raging Blow combination, you'd probably would just be using execute to keep up the executioner debuff, which I found out I don't know, maybe for you that might work as well, but I found out that that worked pretty well, this rotation right here. And the reason I'd never changed this before was because I didn't have a way to test it. I go to the test dummies and they're always at 100% health, so you can't really do an execute phase on them. Until someone who asked this question finally said, oh, by the way, you can test this on these dummies in Northrend. And I'd completely forgotten about those. Like, it never really hit me that that's what they could be used for. Now, they're level 80 dummies, so it's maybe not as good. But, you know, it still lets you compare things. So let me compare a few rotations. I tried a bunch of things. This worked the best. So that is what you should be doing, sub 20%. And thank you to person who I want to thank. Jake Lino 88 is the one who sent me that question and told me that you can test it on the dummies out there. So I was able to get loads of testing in and find out what was best. Oh, also real quick, some people were wondering what this was right here. That is actually just a bartender bar that is really big and spread out. That I set up so you guys could see the rotation. I was trying to look at my little deals down here. Might be kind of hard on YouTube, so I made this big one here so you can really see it laid out there. That's all that is. The next question was, should I be keeping track of or doing anything special with Battle Trance and Insight procs? And yes and no. Battle Trance used to be really important because for a while there, Heroic Strike was one of our hardest hitting, strongest abilities that warriors had. So Battle Trance, which makes your next ability free, was really important because you'd always want to hit Heroic Strike for your Battle Trance proc. Now that it's more of a rage dump, I mean, it's still good. You can still try and do that. It'd probably be a damage increase, but it's not as big of a deal now as it used to be. So you could probably be just fine if you didn't track that at all. Insight, the only reason why you want to Insight proc, usually you would, if you Heroic Strike, you'd end up Heroic Striking again soon enough that you'd end up using it anyway. But I guess you don't want to waste an Insight proc, so I'm not saying like cook and wait for rage, you know, so you can use it, but be looking out for it. Don't let it go to waste most of the time. So just Heroic Strike before it wears off, I guess. Alright, next question. A lot of people have been asking about Fairy PvP. I had some really cool Fairy PvP videos when Cataclysm came out. People saw me pretty much wrecking everything as Fairy. They kind of nerfed that. They nerfed that pretty hard, actually, and that was with the Mastery. They took off, instead of starting with 8 default Mastery, we started with 2, and they nerfed some other stuff in there. But yeah, that pretty much killed it. Fury was fun because it had loads of burst from Raging Blow with the Mastery, and it had, and from the extra multiplier on Death Wish. And it also had the, extra heal for Enraged Regen, so you'd have Enraged Regen healing you for like 70% of your health, and you'd have combined Raging Blows critting for like 100,000 damage total on Resilience players. So it was kind of broken, but lots of fun. It did have some weaknesses then that it still has now, which is that you can be just, people have learned that if you find a Fury Warrior, you dispel the Enrages now. It was a lot more fun before people figured that out. A lot of people probably still don't do that, but in rated PvP, they'll be looking for that if they see a Fury Warrior. So your Death Wish gets dispelled, and anything you'd use to use Colossus Smash to use Raging Blow will be dispelled, and it gets kind of rough. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend Fury PvP anymore. It's still lots of fun. You can do lots of damage. It's pretty lame when you get dispelled. It's more mobile than ARMS. It doesn't have the CC from Throwdown though, which is really good, and it's you know, it's not as preventable as an ARMS Warrior. ARMS Warriors don't depend on Enrages like a Fury Warrior does. So yeah, definitely go ARMS for PvP, not Fury, unless you're just doing it for fun. It's still loads of fun, don't get me wrong, but it's not good for competitive PvP anymore, no. And I'm sure someone will point out, oh, this one guy is a 2400 rated Fury Warrior. Yeah, okay, good for that guy. But no, for most people, it's not viable. Now, I get a lot of questions about other specs. You know, people ask for, you know, do I tank? Do I have a prot guide? Do I do ARMS? I do ARMS. I have an ARMS PvP spec, because like I just said, Fury isn't viable, so I do that. I don't do ARMS PvE DPS. I've always done Fury. I honestly don't care what spec is better at the time. I just like the way Fury plays. I've always been a Fury Warrior. Probably will always be a Fury Warrior. If ARMS is better, cool. I'll be the best warrior that's still Fury. But yeah, For tips as far as arms PvP goes, I get all my tips from Swifty. If you haven't heard of Swifty, which I don't know how you've heard of me and haven't heard of Swifty, you're probably the only one. Pat yourself on the back. But Swifty has all kinds of really great guides for arms PvP. He's a really cool dude. I met him at BlizzCon. His videos are a lot of fun and teaches you how to be an awesome arms warrior. So definitely check out his videos. Any tips I'd be able to give you, he'll probably give you the same ones. So yeah, go over there for arms PvP. For arms PvE, I have dabbled in it, but I would not be able to give you a solid guide on that other than the obvious, which is just Colossus Smash when it's up, Mortal Strike and Overpower when you can, and then when you can't do anything else, Slam. Like, that's the most basic thing ever right there. So no in-depth things like I can with Fury, because I just don't have the experience with arms PvE. And as far as tanking, last time I was a tank was Karazhan, and I didn't actually do that as Prot either. I think Karazhan and ZA I tanked as Fury, because that was before dual spec, and that was kind of acceptable back then. So yeah, I've never really been Prot. But I'm sure there's piles and piles of tanking guides out there. If I find a good one, I'll put it in the comments. Alright, another one I get asked a lot is, what is the best leveling spec? And the answer is all of them. Warriors don't have a bad leveling spec. Arms is great, especially if you want to hit up Battlegrounds on the way up. Fury's just as good for that, probably. They're both great in Battlegrounds, soloing, and in dungeons, because most of your damage comes from cleave anyway, in dungeons, because all the trash packs. Prot is awesome, actually still in Battlegrounds. It's actually really broken at some level. I think like the 50 range, Prot is like really powerful. It does like more damage than arms and is super hard to kill. And of course you get instant queue dungeons if you queue as a tank, because Prot, so it's probably the fastest technically, but there's no bad warrior leveling spec. Just pick one you like and level with it. You'll be fine. Don't feel like you're missing out on anything. You know, probably try them all if you're just curious, but they're all good for leveling. As far as like a rotation with leveling, your primary ability you get from speccing at level 10, so you know, whether it's Mortal Strike, Bloodthirst, or Shield Slam, use that on cooldown, and then Victory Rush the next thing, because you probably one-shot it with the last ability you used if you're using all the BOAs and stuff. That, and then just, if you pull multiple things, Cleave. Like, that's pretty much all there is to it. You'll be fine. You can worry about the fancy stuff when you hit 85 and start raiding. But yeah, Cleave and Bloodthirst is like all you need to know for leveling. Alright, the very last question, or I guess topic kind of brought up here, is what should my DPS be at what item level? I have all these people like asking me like, oh, my item level is this and my damage is that. When a lot of people are like comparing their stuff to me, it's like, well, my gear isn't that different than yours, but you know, item level wise, but my damage is nearly as high. What's going on? And the reason for that is probably the fact that you're not counting that weapons have more of a weight in how much damage you do than any other item. And a lot of you are like, you know, showing that, you know, linking your armory, and you've got pretty much full 359 gear, maybe a few fancies sprinkled in there, and a few like ZA pieces still in there, but most of you don't have, you have like 359 weapons or ZA weapons. I actually have 2 heroic lava spines. They're 372s. And that could be the big difference. There's even one guy who was talking to me who says he's doing less damage. He's got better other gear than me. But I looked at his main hand. He does have a 372 heroic Curse Wormbreaker, the mace. But his offhand is a 359. So that actually weighs in a lot more on your damage than you think it does, even in the offhand. So yeah, it's the weapons. The weapons make the biggest difference. But as far as like being ready for raiding, like you can pretty much be ready for raiding right as you hit 85. If you've done enough battlegrounds and enough dungeons on the way up, you should have enough points to buy like 2 pieces of PvP gear and 2 pieces of PvE gear. And like that alone, like unless you're still in low greens, like you didn't quest or run any dungeons or something for some reason, which you wouldn't have the points to buy this stuff anyway if you did that, you should be like 333-ish blues by then in every other slot. So that right there is like what I started raiding in. Like I was killing 3 bosses with that gear, and that's like item level 340. So, yeah. The requirements, that's like doing 10 to 12k DPS. Like especially with the nerfed raids the way they are now, you can probably go right into raids with item level 240. And I'm pretty sure you can also get into heroics. I think at not 240, 340. At 329, I think, is when you can get into heroics. So pretty much heroics and raids are like on the same level, just because the raids got nerfed. So yeah, just go right in. Don't be afraid. Alright, another thing I get asked a lot is, this is my item level questions, and this is my DPS. What am I doing wrong? Now, in questions like this, I do answer a lot of these. They're very personal ones, like, you know, very specific situations. I just ask that you be as specific as you can and include an armory link. Also, put like what your problem is or something in the question title. Don't be like help or OMG or whatever in the title, because I won't be able to find that later if I like sometimes I just read the question, then I think about it for a while, maybe like go on a raid and then think about, oh hey, you know, that's a good way to answer that, and I go back to find it, and I have all these questions that say help, Fury DPS, and like I can't find the one that I'm looking for. But I do answer those. I will look over your armory, and I'll do my best to find out what is wrong with you, because you know, my whole goal is just make Fury warriors, you know, the most terrifying thing ever. So, you know, everyone I can help is good. Alright, that's all for this video. Make sure if you have any more questions, you send them either a PM on YouTube or to warrior.torage@gmail.com, or just leave comments down below. And as always, thank you for watching, and please subscribe.